Today I'm going to be reacting and discussing this article here from the HBR, Harvard Business Review, discussing promoting the wrong people into management roles. The article itself is focusing on people who are reluctant to do the job. I personally have never seen that. I've always seen people that want to be the manager because of higher pay, higher visibility, etc., whether they're ready for it or not. So I don't know about the reluctance piece. I skimmed through this. The article did a great job talking about that. That's not so much who I'm going to focus on in my commentary. I want to focus on the managers and leaders that are there, that want to be there, and my thoughts of it. I have a few things here highlighted that we'll review, but first and foremost here, it says 38% of employees reported satisfaction issues with the quality of their manager. Over half reported that they trust their manager. That's a massive issue. And what is it, the 16, 17 years I've been in a professional environment at working, right? I've seen more bad managers and leaders, okay, than I've actually seen good. I remember, I'll tell you a story. When I quit, when I left one of my roles some time ago, I remember telling my manager in a chat message, because he was out doing something. So that's the only way I can communicate with them. Hey, I need to talk to you. Just heads up, I'll be resigning from my position. You know what, this illustrious genius leader that inspires you to run through a wall, you know what he says? Okay. And trust me, he wasn't being based. It wasn't aura. It wasn't swagger. It was because he was a dog shit trash manager. And that's basically par for the course on his overall leadership capabilities. He is not the minority. Now, I think most people who are a little bit smarter than this cat wouldn't respond like that. I give you that. But in regards to him being a terrible leader and manager, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, let me just cut to the chase. I think, and it's hard, it's way easier for me to poke the holes here and to criticize and say what the problems are rather than the solutions, right? Because what's the why? Like, what's the big issue here? The big issue is you need some type of management, right? You can't just have 100 people reporting to one person. That's ineffective. Just like the military, you're always going to have some type of hierarchy structure, and there's a span of control, meaning that one leader is has a ceiling, right? You can't just give that one person 50 people. It's not realistic, right? And depending where they are in the chart and their overall scope and responsibility, right? But nonetheless, here's what I don't see from a lot of people. And this is why I think that a lot of people are not cut out to be managers and leaders. And especially when I say leaders, because I think there's a difference between leadership and management, right? Management's kind of seeing, in my opinion, is kind of seeing the work to be done, right? The systemizing it, the processes of it, it's very hands-on when I think of management, right? I'm managing the work, I'm making sure the team is doing the work. Leadership is like the overall strategy and the inspiration, making that person run through the wall. And I think that right there, I think a lot of people can be decent managers in regards to the physicality of the work, but not when it comes to leading men. And when I mean men, I mean humans, just leading people, right? That they're just, for some reason, that doesn't click with them. Listen, let me tell you right now, you thinking that you're some type of big tough guy, you got to be super serious, you're like some fucking Napoleon, whatever, you're some like high IQ, big brain general that they're going to write stories and poems about. Shut up. Stop. You need to have a personality. You need to. Some way, somehow, in your own way, with your own dry ass humor, whatever. You got to have a personality somehow, some way. You have to be able to rhythm. No matter you're the most bubbly person in the world or you're the most antisocial person in the world, what is to stop you from taking 2 minutes out of your day, 3 minutes out of your day, and just asking your team a little bit about themselves? Tell me about your spouse. What are you into? You like sports? You like video games? What are the name of your kids? What's the name of your pet? Tell me the stories about your pet. Tell me this, tell me that. And it should be up to you to remember that, because when you bring that up to people, it's gold. I used to think, I'll be very honest with you guys, when I was young, and my mentors or the older guys would kind of be talking about this type of stuff, right? Because this is the topics for gentlemen. This is the topics for guys who are moving up in their life and they're becoming managers or becoming leaders or becoming, senior managers, directors, and beyond, right? This is the type of shit you start thinking about, you start talking about amongst your peers, right? And when I was younger in my 20s, I would hear this, right? I'd hear the guys, the older cats talking about it. And it sounded so simplistic to me, but they would say things like this, and this is what I would share to you, that what I just mentioned. Basically, you need to ask about them, receive the answers, remember that, and always keep bringing it up. It makes the individual feel awesome, amazing, that you're thinking about them, you're listening to them, you're interested in their life, right? Giving praise, hey, did a great job, right? Not focusing on the mistake, but the improvement thereafter, right? Hey, buddy, listen, man, that was a swing and a miss. That's not a problem. Forget about it. Shake it off. You got to get yourself back up and run the next play, right? Yeah, sure. We can work. Let's work on that. Let's improve it. Da da da. But you, as the leader, are there to help them shake it off so they can continue focusing on what's in front of them. There, you know, uh, walking up to people physically, shaking their hand, saying hello, introducing yourself, again, going back to asking a bunch of questions, blah, 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 being physically present, right? And sometimes that's not possible all the time. So instead of being physically present in a virtual world of Teams and Slack and Zoom, there's nothing stopping you from dedicating time to just not talking about work. It's very simple. It's extremely simple. It's like we're tribal again, right? These are ways that you get emotional and mental buy-in. Not just, I am here to trade my time for money. If your team is only there to trade their time for money and there's nothing else after that, there's no other buy-in. There's no other next couple gears that they're going to click into when stuff is getting hard. There's no other interest in working hard for you. You're failing. You're failing. You're failing. Terrible. And here somewhere in here it says, yeah, the next one. I'm just kind of ranting, but 80% of the managers are overwhelmed by the expanding scope of blah blah. A lack of continued leadership. Another lack of leadership. So I spend a lot of time talking about the personal side of it, right? But this is another failure of leadership and management, is organizing the workload for your team, right? For you being that traffic conductor, you directing the workflow for the rest of the group. It's just, oh my God, everything's always important. Everything's priority. And I'm a nervous wreck myself, and there's 50 things to do. And, right? When you're losing control like that, your team's going to suffer. Your team's going to suffer. And this is another aspect that a lot of people, I think, struggle with, is the art of saying no, or not yet, or we will prioritize. What do we need to prioritize? Not everything. And this is something I had to learn harshly. You are not the hammer for everything, and not everything is a nail. There's some things you really got to stop and think about, right? You really got to stop and think about it. If I'm getting swarmed, if I'm just getting drowned, overwhelmed? Okay, now it's time to really focus. It's one of those things you got to slow down and strategize to speed up. Okay, what are my priorities? Now it's time to start asking some questions backwards, right? To people, to yourself. What are like my top 3, 4 priorities, and the capacity that I and the team have to process it? Okay, let's pretend it's 3. Okay, great. What are the scopes? Okay, what are things that have to be done now or can wait, right? And now you should be qualifying the request of the workload. Listen, I hear you. That's definitely a problem. The way you're going about it, that's not the way, which you're going to cause all this work and blah, 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 blah. And ultimately, the solution is going to still be sloppy or a miss, right? Here's my solution back to you. You like it? Great. Awesome. This is when we can get to it, or we're going to do it now, but in lieu of such and such. We need to make that decision, right? Overwhelmed by the expanding scope of the responsibilities. Okay. And I'm taking that like in terms of workload, not just like, okay, well, I'm Joe off the street and now I got to manage 10 people. I think that's a failure in itself as well, right? For everything I was just talking about, the personality side of it, the management of the workload, right? No one is going to build that overnight, right? So I definitely agree. And I think the article discusses it where people should ooze into it, ooze into it. Have an unofficial lead position. Leon Marino is doing great. Mechanically they're very sound. Let's have a junior employee start working with them unofficially, dotted line, right? Okay, great. Fast forward a little bit now, they are officially a lead or something like that, where junior employees look up to them, and Leon Marino is getting experience dealing with them and answering questions. But for sure, I think that is an appropriate growth, not just, oh, okay, well, flip a switch and all of a sudden they're leaders now, right? HR leaders saying 16% of the organization's manager selection process ensures the right people work in manager roles. They need to prevent the installation of reluctant managers and mitigate the impact of those already in the role. I'll end my little rant by saying this. I think 100% of where leadership really struggles is in that emotional piece. I think there's a lot of boring, dry, uninspirational, unacknowledging, uncheerleading, unflattering people due to the problem of we need managers and we need them now to manage the people and the workload and the AI agents or whatever, right? That get in these positions. It's tough. I don't think you're born to be a good leader, but I think a lot of life experience leads to that. And you lived a very um, you know, inexperienced. And when I say inexperienced, like you don't get out there and just live life and meet a bunch of different people, and you struggle and you laugh, you get your heart broken, you have good times, you got bad times. You get these little like intellectual nerds that they're just walking calculators. They're gonna be awful leaders. They're gonna be awful leaders. How can they relate to the frontline people? How are they gonna, are they even gonna have interest in what people have going on? You know, that's where, when you really care, when you just focus on the people and what their interests are, you'd be amazed. You'd be amazed as how much you can get out of them. So, in short, with this long ass rant, be personable with your crew, and it will pay dividends insanely, right? And chapter 2 was, right, you have to manage that workload that is hitting your team and throughout, right? Because if you get drowning, if you're drowning them, and you have no personality, you have no interest in them whatsoever, you're gonna have a failing, poor producing team. See you next time.